Thanks for tuning into LOP Radio. I appreciate it. This is Liberty with LunaticOutpost.com. Our guest this evening is Quinn Eaker from the Garden of Eden in Arlington, Texas. In the beginning of August, the co-op was raided by an armed S.W.A.T team over accusations of a marijuana grow operation and city code violations. Quinn has been reaching out to the public to share his story through outlets such as Russia Today, InfoWars, and former presidential candidate Ron Paul. You can learn more about the Garden of Eden co-op on their website, intothegardenofeden.com. Thanks very much for joining us, Quinn.
It's great to be here, man.
Right on. I'd like to start out by having you tell us a little bit more about GOE. You have workshops there?
Oh yeah. Our biggest, we have two main goals. Our first main goal is to live and thrive in the most, awesome way possible. And the second goal is to, be able to share those possibilities with everybody who is ready and interested, in those possibilities. So, we grow our own food. We grow way more food than we can possibly eat. We feed people for free. We shelter people for free. We educate people for free. We do workshops. We do retreats. We have, lectures. We have all sorts of different ways that we, reach out to the community. We have whoopers that come here from all around the world. We've had people from, China and Europe and Central America and Mexico. We're little by little, doing what we really want to do, which is not only live sustainably, but share with as many people as we possibly can that living sustainably is not only doable, but it's sexy. We want to bring the sexy back to sustainability, because most people think that it's real dirty, it's hard work, it's poor work. It's not really a part of the American dream per se. But, obviously the American dream is a total sham, and I think most people are, beginning to realize that. And, the sustainable life is actually a really great life, because we're extremely healthy. We don't need any health care. We don't need any vitamins. We don't need any, pharmaceuticals. We don't need any doctors. We don't have to wake up and, sit in traffic. We don't have to put on a uniform. We don't have to, agree with things that we don't agree with. We don't have to act appropriately for the workplace. We don't have to filter ourselves. We don't have to pretend. We don't have to be a part of that that ridiculous life that is, is work and a job.
The rat race, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. We get to wake up whenever we want to. We get to go to sleep whenever we want to. We get to eat as much as we want to whenever we want to. We don't have any, diets. We don't have to count our calories. And, we also don't have to ration, our food stores, because we've got way more than enough. And, we're around the people that we love the most. And the people that are around us are the people that love us the most. So, we're around the people we want to be be with the most. And the people that are with us are the people that want to be with us the most. So, that in and of itself is just a really amazing thing. So, we're living this really high quality life, and we're, sharing the possibilities with the people. And we've been, we've been doing it for a few years now. And just, we're, a little bit more out there every year.
Yeah, I think that out there is probably what has attracted a lot of the recent attention. I thought it was interesting. I was going over your website, and I thought it was pretty awesome. You offer room and board for help around the co-op. You have like a clothing boutique available for trades, I assume, and things like that.
Yeah.
Let's.
We like to give as many options as we can to people, so that people can not only get an education, but also, most people that are eating and sleeping under a roof and using Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff, they're paying for it, which means that they have to work for it. So, like I said, instead of being a part of that rat race, you can just come here and, be out in the fresh air, get some exercise, learn something, while you're also, working for your food and, for your electricity and for your shelter and for your Wi-Fi and, all the amenities that, humans like to have.
Absolutely. One of the things I wanted to commend you on specifically, being a latchkey kid, I thought it was really important, the imperative, the priorities that you put on raising your children and spending as much of your time as you can with them. I think that is probably an enormous problem that we've got in America right now.
Well, Chris, I'm so glad that you're you're able to see that and to mention that, because ultimately that is really the real answer and the real solution. All the problems of this world, they start from childhood, and all the solutions are also, really ultimately in childhood. It's really crazy because, I've been traveling the world for many years. I've talked to thousands of people. I've spoken at conferences, around the world. I've met, people from around the world, and, I speak real powerful truth. And, most people can see that. Most people can feel that at some level, but at the same time, most people just, they can't let go. They can't let go of their conditioning, of their habits, of their normal ways. Even though they hear the truth, they're institutionalized, they're indoctrinated. The Shawshank Redemption is a really amazing book and movie, and one of the big points that it makes in there is that, all of these men, come to prison. It's the last place they want to be. It's the worst place on earth, but then they spend, 5, 10, 15 years there, and they're institutionalized. That's their home. That's all they know. And it's very common that these, prisoners, when they get out, they immediately commit another crime to go back home. And so, it's this really, really dangerous and scary thing. And what's most dangerous and scary about it is that it's very deliberate. The powers that be have been very purposely, taking children from their parents at younger and younger ages and putting them in these institutions and brainwashing them from a very young age. And basically everyone's subject to that. I mean, it's very rare that you meet someone that didn't go to school. And what that means is that you've pretty much never met someone that's not institutionalized and brainwashed at a very deep, subtle, unconscious, subconscious, and even conscious level. And, so sometimes even when you hear the truth or see the truth, it's too much and you're too stuck. So, I'm a huge proponent of, really shifting the paradigm of parenting and of education. And, obviously, I can't change anyone that, isn't looking for the change, isn't ready to change. But, what I, tell parents about is I tell them, one, just about how devastating and, dangerous and, horrible the education system is for so many reasons. But, number two, and most importantly, is what the solution is. And the solution is, Chris, is that we're all born. We're all born free. We're all born capable. We're all born competent. We're all born with the natural inherent ability to learn. That's, it's part of our mechanism is to learn. And I've witnessed this, firsthand. So this isn't just, theory. When children are free and they're, supported in their, in their divine powers, which, basically means that they're capable of anything that's important. And as long as it's important to them, they will be capable of it. And I've seen the truth of this time and time again. So when children are free and they're supported in this knowing, in this awareness that they are fully capable of everything that's important to them, not every child may necessarily read at 4 or 6 or 8 or even 12 years old because they just may decide that it's not important. But really, ultimately, that's okay because they will learn whatever is important whenever it becomes important, and, it's different for every child. But what you will find is that whether they know how to read or not, they are extremely capable in many, many things, including the most important things, like knowing how to self-regulate, their own, food consumption. A lot of kids, they don't even have the freedom to decide when they eat or what they eat or how much they eat. You have to eat at this time. You can't eat this. You have to eat this. If you don't finish this, you're grounded, or you have to sit in timeout, or you have to sit at the table until it's finished, or, You can't go to bed until it's finished. Just a mass amounts of control on, on what children eat. And, basically the message that's being sent to children is that you're so incapable. You don't even know what's good for you. You don't even know how to eat. And that's a really dangerous thing. So, providing children the freedom to experiment with eating foods and to let them figure out how it makes them feel. Once they register, and they will register, once they register that something doesn't make them feel good, they're just going to naturally not want it. And it's way easier and way more sustainable for a child to come to that own realization versus being told without having the experience that, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, you can't have this, you can't do this, you can't do this. In fact, what it does is it makes the child want it even more, and it creates a perverted, it just creates a perverted, dysfunctional, neuron link within the psyche of the child. And this is happening with all sorts of things every day. The sleep thing. You have to go to sleep at this time, and you have to wake up at this time. It's so important that we're able to fall asleep when we're tired, and we're able to do that peacefully and relaxed and free, and we're able to wake up when we're truly rested. It's just amazing how much more, alert and, happy children are when they're rested. And the only way to truly be rested is to sleep until you're tired. And the only way to truly sleep well is to go to sleep when you're ready. So many children have spent, so much time alone in their room, alone in their cribs, scared, bored. All they want is to play. All they want is to be loved. All they want is to be with their family. But they're locked away in a dark room, and it's very traumatizing stuff, and it's just considered, responsible parenting. Children are constantly told, what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. It blows my mind. Children are born naked. We're all born naked into this world. And, children are being taught from a very young age, that their genitalia is bad, that it's dirty, that it's gross, that it's inappropriate. The fact is that without it, life doesn't exist. We only exist because of our genitalia. And it's a very normal part of being alive. We're all born naked. This stigma and this perversion and this judgment about being naked and, genitalia in general is it's very unhealthy, and it's not natural. It's not natural. It's not natural. We've got to get over that, and we've got to provide a safe space for our children to be naked if they want to be naked, and, to be comfortable with themselves and with their own bodies. It's really, really, really important stuff. What children learn. It's so important, because children are constantly being taught, like even in homeschooling, you've got these curriculums. It's all crap, man. The only way to truly be a master and to truly be a genius is to do what you love. And when children do what they love, they shine, they excel. They're amazing. They're stars. They're stars. And, the real truth is that, just imagine, someone like Michael Jordan, for example. He had to go to school. He had to do all sorts of crap with his time. Just imagine how great he would have been. I mean, he was already great because he dedicated his passion and his love to basketball. But just imagine how much even more great he would have been if he grew up in a world where he didn't have to focus on reading and mathematics and, history and all this crap that he didn't really care about. He would be even more amazing than he was. And it's true for all of us. If we have the opportunity to focus on what we love, we are going to be masters at whatever that is. And a huge problem that exists in this world today is that, people are just very mediocre with what they do. And that's because they never even had an opportunity to figure out what it is that they love. People don't even know what their passion is. People don't even know what purpose means. People are like, oh, I wake up and I go to work and I pay the bills, and I wake up and I go to work and I pay the bills, and I get older every day. What is purpose? It's, we're all born. We're all born with something that we love. We're all born with something that we're attracted to, that we're inspired by, that we're called to. And when we have the freedom to engage that, amazing things happen. Miracles happen. I've seen it time and time again. Children that are in school and they get pulled out of school, because they don't fit in. They're being made fun of. They're, getting bad grades. and they have the freedom to, focus and pay attention to things that they love, they completely change. They become, confident. They become, they become happy, and they excel at something. They become really good at something because they're able to, to pay attention to and experiment with something that they love. And it's just such a powerful thing. It's so powerful. You can never really be great at something, that you're doing because you have to. And, in school, it's all because you have to. I've never met a single person that I've met a lot of adults that say, oh yeah, school is good, it's important, blah, blah, blah. But I've never met a single adult, not a single child that says, I loved waking up every morning at an alarm clock. I loved having to do homework every day. I loved having to, go to subjects that I didn't care about and do tests and, projects and, study on these things that I didn't care about and I didn't like. I loved, sitting in detention. I loved being made fun of or, being picked on or, being bullied. I've never met anyone that said they love those things, and yet those things are a part of every single day in school.
Absolutely, I agree with you. It's a instituting different forms of control and the indoctrination that happens during school. Much of it, it teaches the children not to trust their instincts or their intuition, and it kind of shies them away from their natural attraction of the unknown. And in many times, it, like you said, it creates neurotic behavior. And the sad part about schooling is most of the curriculum. If you look at the difference between a public school and a private school, the curriculum, they've taken out most of like what we would call the classical arts or the liberal arts, the arts that free people learn, like rhetoric, literature, various forms of painting and things like that. And childhood itself, as like a thing, like your childhood, how they'll lie to you about Santa Claus and stuff like that, is really kind of a recent machination of the last couple of 100 years. And it seems like the mode is being pushed further and further out into adolescence and into adulthood until we're stuck with people who are pretty much man-child, that don't really know how to function outside of being a child and being coddled and looking for the next commercial trinket that they can buy so they can be accepted by their friends. And it's really, like you said, a huge waste of potential. I've read stories about kids who were given a computer at a really young age and let loose, of course, on a controlled environment, but on an internet like backbone where they were able to go around and check out different things that they want. And in first grade, they've learned addition, they've learned subtraction. If they're math-oriented, they learn division and multiplication and things like that. And if they're reintroduced into a public school system, that information isn't utilized for another 3 or 4 years, and it's pretty much lost to them. They're stuck in the small little chunks of information that everybody has to adhere to at the same time. And if you're too slow to pick up on it, or you're not interested on it, or if it bores you, then you're drummed out and you're sent into an even slower process called alternative school or something like that.
Yeah, it's, there's so many problems. There's so many problems that you can't, it would take a whole book, just to list all those problems. We haven't even gotten into, how common it is now that children, are on some pharmaceutical, to make them behave properly, and these pharmaceuticals are, extremely dangerous. They're extremely dangerous. And, it's all in the name of, suppression. And, the whole perspective of children has to really change. And, right now the perspective of children is that they're incapable, they're stupid, they've got to be taught everything, they're irresponsible, they're going to, they've got to be disciplined because they're going to always be getting in trouble and always be doing something irresponsible and, blah, 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 blah. It's just, it doesn't have to be true. I've seen plenty of children where that appears to be true, but it doesn't have to be true, because I've seen all sorts of children where that doesn't apply to. I've seen children that, at 4 years old can, climb a 40-foot tree. I've seen children that at, a year and a half, they can use a fully sharpened, kitchen knife and, mince garlic. I have seen, children of all ages, do extraordinary things, which, really don't need to be extraordinary. It could just be normal. What's really extraordinary is that these children are actually given responsibility. They're actually treated as though they're capable. And when children are given responsibility and they're treated as though they're capable, they act responsible and they act capable. When they're treated as though they're irresponsible and as though they're incapable and as though they need to be taught everything, then they act that way. Like I said, we're born with an inherent ability to learn, and children are constantly observing everything. They're like little sponges, and they will learn. They will learn everything that they're around. If you speak multiple languages and you just speak them, you don't ever have to teach them the language. They just know the language. You could just play, movies in different languages and they would pick it up. They're little sponges. And so, it's really the responsibility of the parents to realize that children are capable, that they are responsible, that they're born knowing how to learn, they're born wanting to know how to learn, and, to provide them with a much healthier environment. TV, is not really a healthy thing. I'm not going to say, there should be rules that, we shouldn't watch TV or there should be a certain amount we can and can't watch. But, if you provide a child with a real environment, which really doesn't exist for most children, but, opportunity to explore and to adventure and to be exposed to, new and exciting things on a daily basis, they're going to learn so much. They're going to be so capable. They're going to be way, way above and beyond, the children in school, because the children in school are, they're in a zoo and they have no opportunity to excel. They're totally locked up and caged in, and all they can do is, regurgitate, the information that they've been, force fed. So it really does. It comes down to the parents. The children aren't the problem. The parents are the problem. And, it's not that parents are necessarily maliciously, abusing their kids, but, the real truth is that because of their ignorance, they are abusing their children on a daily basis. They're putting their children in abusive situations on a daily basis. And people don't like it when I use that word, and I can feel for them, but that's actually why I use it. Because it's really important that parents realize that, putting children in school, it is abusive. It's not anything less. I mean, it's one of the most abusive things you could possibly do for a child. And then, parents may say, well, I've got to work, and how do I work, with a child around every day and, got to pay for this child. Well, there's a million problems and there's also a million solutions. And, one of the things that I've realized for myself is that it is actually possible to live a very simple life. We really don't need much at all. And also, children, they need even less. People are always talking about how expensive it is to have children, but from my perspective, they really actually cost nothing at all. They don't need anything. They really don't. Children that are free and that are happy, they don't need anything. They'll make 100 different games with a stick. They'll make 200 different games with a rock,
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this real quick. I've only ever been around people who have been schooled and in that particular system for their entire life. I'm probably the least schooled person that I know. Do you find that in your travels and what you've observed that there's any lacking in a child's sense of duty or dependability or discipline when they're not involved in the rigors of school or anything like that? How would they develop those traits?
Well, again, it's all going to come down to the parents. You can't say that taking a child out of school is the solution, because actually it's possible that being at home with certain parents is even worse than being in school. So it's not like just because you take your child out of school, that means that everything's going to be amazing and you're going to have this super genius, brilliant child that's capable of everything. A child can't excel more than the environment that it has access to. A child can't, a child can't be more capable than, the support and the environment, around them. So, if they live in a household with a parent that is constantly telling them, oh, you're stupid, or, oh, you're going to get hurt, or, oh, you're so clumsy, or, oh, you're such a pain in my ass, or, blah, 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 blah. If they're constantly being treated like that, they're going to act like that, and they're going to be problem children. So, another problem, with the schooling is that your mind wants to compartmentalize everything. Your mind wants to have a rule for everything, that, okay, this is what you do, and this is what you don't do, and as long as you do this, this is going to be the result, and as long as you don't do this, this is going to be the result. But, life really isn't like that, and the real truth is that all children are different. Even children born to the same two parents, the first child is going to be much different than the second child, and the third child, may be different than, the first two children. And, it's a very organic process. And so, really what it comes down to is the environment that the child's in. And if they're in a healthy environment, amazing things happen. In fact, because this is sort of one of my areas of specialty, I've been talking to parents at conferences and through private consultations since I was probably about 20 years old. And, there was a lot of parents that have respected me and admired me, and like I said, they've actually paid me and hired me as private consults, for their parenting process, way before I had my own children. And of course, there was always some people that would be like, how can you be an authority, or how can you be an expert, or how can you be speaking about parenting when you don't even have your own children? And my response has always been, I was a conscious child. And there's nobody that knows more about what's beneficial parenting than a child. And what really needs to happen is the children need to start being listened to. Children, like I said, they need to be treated as though they're divine, empowered, conscious, capable beings. If children are treated that way, they will act that way, and there will be, very few to no problems whatsoever. So, discipline, it doesn't need to exist. It doesn't need to exist. There doesn't need to be any discipline. I've got a child now who's not even 2 years old, and because we live such responsible lives, she has been going to the bathroom in her own potty since she was, less than a year old. And she even, picks up her own potty and she walks it to the bigger potty and dumps it in the bigger potty, and then she cleans out the smaller potty. And we don't have to tell her to do that. She does that because she naturally lives as a responsible being, because she's always been treated that way, and because she sees us act that way. When she makes a mess or whatever, she naturally, she goes and she gets a rag and she starts scrubbing it. She's not even 2 years old, so she can't always do, a fully competent cleanup job, but, she tries.
Right.
She tries her... Right, the intent is there, and once she becomes more skilled at using her body, and once her body becomes stronger and more capable, the results will be much more capable. The real importance, again, is in that intention, is in that perspective. And, she likes to clean. She likes to clean. She puts all of her own toys away. She wants to put all of her own toys away. She'll get out a big basket of toys, and she'll, spread them all over the floor, and she'll play with them all. And then it's just as much a part of the game for her to put them back where they belong. It's just this amazing thing to see. Like, she'll go into, someone's room, an adult's room, and she'll start playing with, things that the adult has. And then, after 10 or 15 minutes, like, she'll actually remember exactly where those things went. And she'll put them back exactly where they were. She'll even turn the things to be facing the way that they were facing. Not only the exact right place, but the exact proximate, location and angle and degree of which they were. She's extremely intelligent, extremely capable, and there's no way that you can force that. There's no way that you can teach that. the only way that that can truly happen is by respecting and honoring the child's innate capabilities and treating them as though they are fully capable, fully capable. Every single day of her life, I've always treated her as though she can do anything. She can do anything that she wants, and the only reason she doesn't do something is because she doesn't care. And, you know, it's a little bit of a balance, you know, having a child in an adult world because, you know, for example, for her, you know, she doesn't care about some of the things that we care about, and therefore, you know, she doesn't, act in the same way that we would act. But when we're able to communicate with her that, you know, look, this is really important to us. I know it's not important to you, but it's really important to us. You know, she realizes that it's important to us, and even though she doesn't really care, she also doesn't have a problem with honoring it because it is important to us and making it a part of, you know, her natural conduct because, you know, she loves and respects and honors us. You know, it's like, it really is. It's a total paradigm shift. You know, letting go of all the discipline, letting go of the teaching. You know, I don't ever feel like I'm teaching her anything. If she wants to learn something, she observes and she figures it out. And, you know, if she has a question, she asks. If she wants help with something, she asks. I don't ever offer her help. I don't ever say, hey, let me show you how to do this. She does everything exactly how she wants to do it. And if she has a question, she'll ask. If she wants my input, she'll ask for it. And if she doesn't, I stay out of it. I leave her to her own business, to her own process. And that's how she learns the best, because as a parent, you can never know. You can never know exactly what's going on in your child's head. You can never know exactly where they're at. I mean, it's just so amazing, like to watch, you know, a newborn, for example, you know, the say, you know, a month and a half years old, like they're just realizing that they have hands. You know, they're just realizing that they have hands, and they're looking at these things, and they're like, whoa, you know, it's like somebody on acid. You know, they're looking at their hands, and they're like, oh, my God, I've got these hands. These things are amazing. Look, I can even move it and make it go like this. You know, I mean, when you're a child, life is just this amazing, new, fresh, alive experience that, you know, most adults can't even comprehend because they're so just, you know, numbed and, you know, unconscious and, you know, shut down.
Absolutely.
You know, that newness and that excitement is not even there.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really hard to put yourself in your child's shoes. So what's really best is to just stay out of it. You know, the parents are fucked up. You just got to realize that. You got to accept the fact that you're fucked up. And the best that you can do for your children is to not impose your fucked upness, to not get involved, to stay out of it until and only when they come to you and show a real, genuine interest in something that you have to offer. Otherwise, stay out of it and let their natural, divine power flow through.
I agree with you. The children are quite a miracle, and one that most of us have yet to been able to uncover, and hopefully we'll be able to see more of the paradigm shift in the future towards giving them the proper respect and the area that they deserve.
Right.
Let's move on just a little bit here. I took a look at some pictures and some video. Of course, I've got to be frank with you. When I first heard the story and read the press release, I wasn't familiar with Garden of Eden, and of course, to me, my first instinct, of course, just like everybody else, I probably looked at the first thing and said co-op, marijuana, police raid, and you know my programmed, you know. Response set in from my days back at watching TV, and I said, oh, this is, you know, somebody that wasn't properly respecting what they needed to respect and doing what they need to do, and had my own preconceived notions about what the co-op itself involved, and I'm you know, a little embarrassed to admit that, but I've got to be honest now. I've taken a look at some of the film and some of the pictures, and really, it looks like it's, I mean, just short of being, I mean, of course, it's on a smaller scale, but just short of being like an actual farm. Can you tell us about the co-op that you have on the 3.5 acres out there?
Well, you know, we don't actually consider ourselves a farm, just because, you know, to me, farm has too many agricultural, you know, preconceived connotations and assumptions. You know, really what we're trying to do here is establish a fully sustainable symbiotic ecosystem that the result is, food. And so, we don't do any sort of tilling. We don't use any pesticides, any herbicides, no fertilizers, not even organic ones. Our whole, if you've ever studied permaculture, what we're doing is much more similar to that. I wouldn't necessarily call what we're doing permaculture, but I would say that there's many similarities. I myself try to stay away from as many labels as possible. Sure. Just because to me it's more of a problem than it is anything else. So I try to stay away from all labels. But what we're really trying to do is set up a truly sustainable ecosystem, which means that actually we're trying to resemble nature. And it's really amazing because, I've been to some of the most naturally thriving places on Earth, Costa Rica, Hawaii, the Queets National Forest, the Olympic National Park in Washington, these places, like if you go out into nature, there's more life, there's more abundance than any place that's ever been touched by man. Man is not actually good at facilitating life. Man is pretty adept at destruction. And all the agricultural methods that we have now, you can't deny that, industrial farming produced more calories than was normally produced. But you also can't deny that the impact on the earth is of such a devastating scale that we've never seen before. And it's not a worthwhile trade. And it is actually possible to produce a lot of calories, a lot of nutrition without having the devastational impact on the earth. So that's what we're really trying to do, is to set up a symbiotic, sustainable ecosystem, which includes bugs. We're not trying to get rid of bugs. We're trying to include bugs, a proper balance of bugs. It includes what people might call weeds. We're not trying to necessarily get rid of weeds. We're holding space for the weeds to play a part in that system. Bugs, animals, and birds. We're not trying to destroy them or get rid of them. We're allowing them to play their part in that whole system. And yes, we are using our human influence to give favor to certain things, which would be the things that we eat. But we're doing it in a very conscious and, supportive way of the whole ecosystem. So, we've got, beehives, we've got, all sorts of different types of bugs, that, some people might consider pests. But we don't use any herbicides or fertilizers to get rid of any of those weeds or any of those pests. And we have found a way to, like I said, grow much more food than we need. For the people that are here, we have way more calories, way more nutrients than we need, 365 days a year. We have, our fruits, we have our vegetables, we have our fats, we have our proteins, and, we do that with, a relatively small amount of space. We do it with an extremely small amount of resources, and we do it with a pretty small amount of time, too. There's definitely some hard work involved. It definitely requires, dedication and consistency, but, the amount of time that it actually requires to sort of maintain this sustainable system is actually quite small. And the real cool thing about actually implementing truly sustainable environments is that when you implement truly sustainable environments, they actually become more productive over time and less work over time versus, more work and less productive. In all industrial agricultural practices, the earth is being depleted. The soil is being depleted, and therefore the crops are harder to grow, and it would cost more money to make them grow because you need more soil supplements. And also the weaker the soil, the weaker the plants, which means they're more susceptible to bugs and to diseases. So in the industrial agricultural farming methods, over time, it actually costs more and more time, more resources, more energy to produce the same amount. whereas in a sustainable system, it actually costs less time, and you get more and more productivity over time. So, it's a really important, shift. It's just like in parenting. It's much less a method change as it is a paradigm, a state of consciousness, a perspective change. And, it's very understandable, it's very justifiable to see, for example, like in parenting, why children are continually treated the way they are, because that's what everyone's exposed to, that's what everyone sees. Most people don't ever have an opportunity to meet somebody like me. Most people don't ever have the opportunity to see the truth of what I'm talking about in relationship to children. And if they don't ever get to see that, how can they make that huge leap on their own, and completely shift that paradigm? It's very rare. It's very rare. You would call that some sort of like a divine revelation. So what we're really trying to do here is to educate people and to show people new paradigms, new perspectives. So, whether it's parenting or whether it's food, you sort of have the old paradigm perspective, and then you have the new paradigm perspective. And we're not necessarily saying one is better than the other or one is right or wrong. What we are saying, though, is that, you can either have a child that, requires discipline, has to be taught everything, is always, is always a pain, is always a nuisance, costs a lot of money to have, blah, 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 blah. Or you could have a child, that's an enjoyable to be around, that's extremely healthy, that requires no discipline. You don't ever have to take care of the child. You don't have to watch the child. You don't have to teach the child. The child is just this amazing, awesome, thriving being. So, you can choose whatever one you like. Which results do you prefer? And it's the same thing with the food. You can have a farm, where you till the soil and you have pesticides, herbicides, and, fertilizers, to keep all the bad stuff out and to, replenish the soil and, spend all this money and all this time to, get this crop. Or, you could have this symbiotic sustainable system where, you get a good yield. Our produce is much more nutrient rich than most produce because our soil is so rich. It's the quality of the soil that's going to dictate the quality of the produce. It is possible with really bad soil to get a tomato that's just as big as a tomato we have, but the flavor is going to be different and the nutrient content is going to be far different. So most crops are grown with fertilizers, and it's sort of like a guy, bodybuilding with steroids. His muscles get really big, but his body's getting depleted. And as soon as he gets to a certain age, the body collapses, it breaks down, it gets sick, it gets a disease, whatever, because it wasn't the way it was actually designed to happen. And that's the same thing with fertilizers. They're just like steroids. There's no nutrients in fertilizers, it's just nitrogen. And the nitrogen boosts the growth, but it's boosting the growth without the nutrient-rich depth. So we've got really high-quality soil that is, got lots and lots and lots of nutrients. And so our produce grows and it tastes really good, and it's also extremely, it's like a superfood. It's full of nutrients. It's nutrient-rich. It's nutrient-packed. So the way that we go about growing food is far different. It's far different than basically any farm or farming that you're going to see.
I assume that it's probably a little bit more different than your neighbors around there. I'm curious. I'm curious how in touch with your community that you are. If they're how they feel about the paradigm that you're exploring. How if they are in tune with this, if they are opposed to this. I recall that you had some problems with one of your neighbors that were actually involved in the complaint that led to the raid. I'm curious, do you have other people in the community that are harmonious with your ideals?
Well, we live in Texas, man, and not only do we live in Texas, but we're not in Austin, Texas. We're in Arlington, Kennedale, Texas, and it's very conservative. It's very old school. we don't do things like most people do things. And, the people around here, they're used to things being done the way things are always being done. And, everyone around here has all of these, huge lawns, that they mow. And, we think that's ugly. We think that's irresponsible. We think that's unsustainable, but we're not going around complaining. We're not going around with guns, making them grow weeds. We let them live their life, even though we disagree with it. We've actually got neighbors that, they spray herbicides along the fence line of our property, and that's actually a legitimate detriment to our well-being. And even still, we don't, take guns and try to force them to do something, or force them to not do something. We allow them to do what they want to do.
How do you? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, my whole point is that regardless of whether neighbors agree with what we're doing or not, really it doesn't matter. This is our land, and we have our birthright that we were born with to pursue our right of happiness, to follow our spiritual path, to be secure in our property, our effects, our person, our body. We have the right to provide for our family, to sustain, by whatever means necessary, as long as we don't hurt somebody else, a livelihood. We have the right to our livelihood. And that's what we're doing here. And, the truth is that, we're doing a lot of things that are out of the normal. Like we have people, walking around our land that are naked. And, we're not like, pushing it in people's faces. But it is possible that neighbors could see that. That they may not like that, and they may feel uncomfortable with that, but they don't have to look in our direction. They don't have to look on our land. They can keep their eyes on their land. We've got, like I said, we've got tall grasses. People call them weeds. People call them whatever they want, but the real truth is they're not there because we're lazy or too lazy to cut them down. They're there because they're an important part of our sustainable ecosystem. These grasses are really, they're a really important thing. They provide shade for a bunch of our crops. Here in the summertime, it's very common to go for a month and a half of 100+ degree temperatures.
Oh, yeah.
Without any rain. That's super hot temperatures. And we've got neighbors, that actually, they grow crappy little gardens, and all of their tomatoes are dead, by July, August because it's too hot. Well, we can grow tomatoes all year long, because we have shade crops for them. And it's just as simple as allowing these huge tall grasses, to grow amongst the tomato plants. And they shade the plants, and they allow them to grow all summer long, and we get harvests all summer long. These tall grasses, we can juice them. They have a lot of nutrient-rich juice inside of them.
This is the Johnson grass?
Yeah, Johnson grass. These grasses, we use them for, food for our animals. We use them for bedding for our animals. We use them in, earthen building projects. If you've ever heard of cob, which is quite potentially the greatest, building medium on the entire earth, grass is an essential part of that building method. And, we need tall grasses to do that. You can't do cob building with, short little Bermuda, front long grasses. You've got to have, tall, long grasses. So these tall, long grasses are a really essential part of our overall livelihood that we have here. And, if people don't like the way that looks, honestly, they have a lot of problems. Number one, they're ignorant, because if they knew what was really going on, they wouldn't have that perspective. Number two, they have no right whatsoever to be upset with how we live our life and what we do on our land. They can do what they want with their land, but we have the right to do with what we want on our land. So whether they approve or not, it's actually besides the point. They have no authority, they have no right whatsoever, and it's completely irresponsible, it's completely disrespectful, it's completely dishonorable to try in any way to influence or to affect or to enforce their will upon us. It's completely and totally ridiculous. On top of that, we actually went to our neighbors very specifically And we asked them, look, do you have any problems with what we're doing? Because according to certain information, we have information that says that there's neighbors that don't like what we're doing. So we're coming to you as an honorable person, to discuss and to talk about, what might be a problem, what might be potential solutions. And not a single neighbor said that they had any problems. They are all like, well, it's a little weird, but, it's your life, and, you have the right to, to do what you want on your land and blah, blah, blah. Not a single one said, oh, yeah, I have a problem with this and, blah, blah, blah. And yet, at the same time, those same people that said to our faces they had no problem, are calling the, freaking city and complaining and saying, you need to do something about this. So it just shows you the level of dishonor and dishonesty that is rampant in this country. There are scientific studies, and of course all studies are relative, but there are multiple scientific studies that say that the average person is lied to 200 times a day. And when I say lie, I don't necessarily mean like some, huge, malicious, life or death lie. What I mean is they're told not the truth. People are told not the truth 200 times a day.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
And that's just normal. That's just considered normal. When you go to the workplace, it not only is it normal, it's a requirement to be appropriate. It's required to filter yourself. It's required to not tell the truth.
Yeah, I remember.
If you're in school.
Sorry, go ahead.
If you're in school, it's the exact same thing. You're required to not tell the truth. If the truth is inappropriate, if it's, in any way, politically incorrect or, controversial or, blah, 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 you can't talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. Whether you agree or not, you have to respect the teachers. You have to blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's just totally ridiculous that, the level of, appropriateness, it has become so far from honor, truth, and integrity.
I'll tell you, I remember there's been a few times in my life where I've made the decision to kind of put my foot down and say that this is not a line that I'm going to cross anymore. The first one was probably litter. The second one was when I made the decision to stop lying to people, because it's like so much of my brain was taken up with the it took up so much memory and thought power to maintain.
Right, keeping track of the lies.
Yeah, and it not only negatively affected my personal well-being about who I thought I was, but it had a serious impact on the people around me. Now,
right.
You discussed this with your neighbors, and they were dishonest with you and said that they didn't have a problem, and then that's probably about the time that the trouble started, and that would have been about February of this year, when city code enforcers and neighbors and people in the community weren't agreeable to your views on things like the grass hanging out of the road and some of the things you had in your yard. And this is probably when the code violations were issued. Can you tell us about in February when you received those and your steps to remedy them before the raid happened?
Yeah, and this is all really important information, so I'm glad you're asking about this, because as far as I'm concerned, it's at least as significant as the raid itself. We actually had violations before February sent to us from the code compliance, and you mentioned the grasses hanging over the road. It wasn't grasses; it was actually some bushes. We've got some photinias that basically are a living fence that keep the road and neighbors from seeing into our property and blah blah blah. They were overhanging into the road. They had cited some other stuff like improperly stacked wood and grasses that were too tall. Well, when we got these initial violations, even before February, we immediately cut the bushes that overhang into the road because, we figured, well, this could possibly, impede someone's, free will right to travel. And we're honorable people, so we have no desire whatsoever to impede anyone's, free will right to travel in any way. So we immediately cut those down. And we sent them a letter basically saying, we cut these down, but these other things, it's part of our sustainable lifestyle. We'd be totally happy to have you come out here and, we'll show you about what we're really doing and why it's so important and, how it really works. And, this could be a great thing for the city. We could easily show the city how to, grow free food for hundreds of people, without any cost to you whatsoever, blah, blah, blah. We were actually kind of excited, to be able to potentially have an interaction with the city where we could sort of enlighten them and sort of educate them and, give them some really powerful information that they were obviously not aware of. They never took us up on that offer at all. They basically, tried to, reinforce the violations or whatever. And that's when in February we started, we basically took the law into our own hands because we basically realized that they don't care about truth. They don't care about honor. They don't care about due process of law. All they care about is enforcing their code violations and, getting paid fine, fine money.
Sure.
So we took the... Yeah, exactly. It's just a money-making machine, and the people, which really aren't people anymore, they're persons and slaves, are just the cattle. They're just the machine that is feeding the beast, feeding the system. So we don't play a part in that, and we're not going to play a part in that, and that's actually the main reason why one of the main reasons why we're doing what we're doing is because we do not want to feed the beast. And every time you buy food at a grocery store, you feed the beast. Every time you drive your car, you feed the beast. Every time you pay taxes, you feed the beast. Every time you pay utilities, you feed the beast. And that's basically everybody's life. So we're cultivating a life where that doesn't exist, so that we're not feeding the beast, so that we're not supporting the problems that we know we disagree with. We're actually living the solution. So anyways, we took the law into our own hands, and we sent them a lawful notification. And in this lawful notification, the short of it is basically, we were born free, and, the Constitution of the United States, and the government officials, the public servants, are in place to support and uphold and protect these birthrights. The Constitution does not give us any rights. These rights are there at birth. They're natural rights. They're God-given rights.
Sure, they're bestowed by your Creator.
Exactly. The Constitution is just, and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence, these are just documents, proclaiming these rights to be true and, establishing a system for the protection and the upholding of these rights and the enforcement of justice for these rights. So, we sent them a lawful notification saying that, we're free. And unless you can show us a law that supersedes this law, or unless you can show us a law that, gives you authority over us as people, as living, breathing people, then there is no law and there is no authority, and therefore you have no jurisdiction whatsoever to enforce these statutes and these codes. And they did not respond with any law whatsoever. They did not respond with anything. And so their silence was their acquiescence. That was a part of the contract. So we sent them another lawful notification, and we said, based on lawful notification sent at so-and-so time, points A, B, C, and D have been established. It is now agreed upon by, so-and-so and so-and-so that, A, B, C, and D are true and existing. They're bona fide facts in law, and until there is bona fide facts that prove these bona fide facts, under penalty of perjury to be, incorrect or unlawful, then this is the fact in law on the record as stands. And, we established that all, certified mail, sent, signed, sworn, and attested to under penalty of perjury, notarized documents. We follow the due process of law. I know the law extremely well. I know contract law. I know common law. I know many, many, many facets of the law, and I know how to do it properly. So, we did that, and we established with them what this was, and they, whether they liked it or not, they knew that there was nothing that they could do. They tried to threaten us, with, arbitrary threats, and we actually, sent them, a more lawful notification basically saying that, you're, committing, extortion and, harassment and, you're making threats of trespassing and, theft and blah, 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 blah. This is, noted.
Sorry, so your position in February when you started, just to clarify this, was to bring about a claim that they didn't have jurisdiction specifically over the authority that they were trying to exercise. And by not having authority of the jurisdiction, then their claims were baseless, I mean.
Yeah, their claims were void ab initio, void from the beginning. We never once argued violations. We never once argued whether there were violations or whether there wasn't. We challenged the jurisdiction. We challenged the authority, period. And our whole claim, which we proved on the record, was that there is no jurisdiction and there is no authority to enforce these statutes and these codes, because these statutes and these codes cannot supersede the supreme law. And statutes and codes that in any way inhibit or hinder or regulate our birthrights are void ab initio. I mean, that's just law, man. That's just straight up law, and we proved it on the record, and we, created bona fide documents in law that proved that on the record. And so there was nothing that they could do, despite their threats, despite their guns, despite whatever. There's nothing that they could do, and they knew that there was nothing that they could do. We posted no trespassing signs. We posted, notices on our fence, to the city specifically, stating, the established bona fide facts on record, and the consequences for, violating any of that. We had a lock on our gate. So it's unfortunate we had to do that, but with law, we did establish our rights, and we kept on doing what we wanted to do, and there was nothing that they could do about it.
So part of your position was that these were statutes and codes that they were trying to enforce from a city position, but this isn't necessarily a law that you are bound to by the Constitution necessarily.
Right. Well, again, like I said, there can be no law, statute, code, regulation, or anything that hinders, inhibits, or regulates in any way my birthrights. Period. They become void ab initio. The only way that they can have any power is through private contract. You have to agree. And contract law is really powerful, because if you agree with a contract, if you agree with a signature to waive your rights and turn them into privileges, to waive your rights and allow them to be, taxed and regulated and licensed and, blah, 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 blah. If you agree to do that, then they can do that, and they do have jurisdiction. But it's a voluntary thing. They have no authority to enforce it against your will. It has to be voluntary. And see, that's the thing, is that, because people are slaves, they're voluntarily, whether they know it or not, they're voluntarily turning their rights into privileges, and they're giving the city jurisdiction over their lives. And as soon as they give the city jurisdiction over their lives, then the city has authority to enforce those statutes and those codes. But when you know the law, and you actually know how the law works, and you use it properly, you can use that law to establish the truth, which is that I have these birthrights, these unalienable birthrights, of which are protected and upheld for me pursuant to the Constitution of the United States, which is the supreme law of the land. And there can be no statute, no code, no law that hinders or inhibits these rights. They become void ab initio. So all you have to do is claim that, and it's so. It already exists. You just have to claim it. So there's nothing that they could do, but they didn't like it. They didn't like it that we are growing our own food. They didn't like it that we're self-sufficient and we're independent. They didn't like it that, we do things differently than other people do it. They didn't like it that they couldn't enforce their will upon us, that they didn't have power and control and authority over us. And they didn't like it that we were teaching other people how to do these same things. And
they weren't trying to hear that, basically.
Oh, no, it's very powerful information that we're doing here. And it goes against everything that the established system stands for, because everything that we're doing is free and independent and self-reliant of that system. And every person that we teach, could potentially become also free and self-reliant and independent of that system, and then they lose power. See, they have no inherent power. All of their power is by what's given to them by the people. That's the only power that they have, is what's given to them by the people. And the people's got to wake up, and they've got to remember that they're actually the power. If you do a study, or if you do a survey, I guarantee you that over 90% of the American population believes that the government can do whatever it wants, and there's nothing we can do about it. And
absolutely, and we're losing footing on that every day, it seems like, as they institute different laws and different codes and different
Right, but you have to realize, this is really important, you have to realize that they can't do that without our permission. The government has no inherent power. They have no inherent authority. They are created by the people, for the people. See, we supersede the government, and we supersede the government officials. The government was created by and for the people, right? Nothing that was created can supersede the creator, period. It can't happen unless the creator, gives that authority. And so that's what's happened, is that the people have been tricked and coerced and manipulated over many generations to turn their rights into privileges and give up that power, to give that power to the government. And now they've given that power away, and because it's become so normal and a part of life that they've given that power away, people actually believe that the government has some sort of authority and some sort of power, but they don't. The government has no authority and they have no power except for what we give them. And this is what people have to remember, they have to wake up to. And I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if it can happen because, like I said, people's minds are so indoctrinated, so institutionalized. And, it may just be too much because you've spent your entire life fearing authority. You spent your entire life believing that the government has power over you and that they can do whatever they want and there's nothing you can do about it. It may be too much to get over, but it doesn't change the facts of what I say. The facts of what I say are true, they're undebatable, they're unarguable, they're facts. The facts are the government was created by and for the people. The government officials are public servants, and they all swore an oath of office under penalty of perjury to serve and protect the people and the Constitution of the United States. That's a fact. All of that exists, and we can enforce that at any point in time, and we can claim that power and use that power at any point in time. All it requires is people waking up and doing it. It's very, very simple stuff. So this is what we're teaching people. This is very powerful stuff, and that's why the government has spent a lot of time and a lot of money trying to find some way that they can justify trying to destroy us. And they have they've sent undercover cops here, or undercover detectives. They've sent unmanned drones. They've sent helicopters. They've put police patrols outside of our gates and up and down our streets. They've tried to intimidate us. That didn't work. They tried to threaten us. That didn't work. They tried to enforce statutes and codes that were void ab initio. That didn't work. And so what did they do? They came up with some completely unfounded and bogus drug trafficking claim, which they were able to get a warrant for. And, they came in and, tried to enforce their will. Now, of course, they found nothing whatsoever related to anything drug trafficking. They didn't find any of the marijuana plants that some expert, marijuana detective, said he saw from a plane, or from a helicopter, rather. They didn't find anything. They didn't find any of the stuff that they were so sure that they were going to find, nothing whatsoever. So if you look at their warrant and you know the law, and you look at the affidavit that you have to have in order to have a warrant, and you know the law, you'll see how bogus they are. You'll see how ridiculous they are. An affidavit is a statement of facts. That's what an affidavit is. Well, if you look at this affidavit, there's not a single fact in it whatsoever. It's all hearsay, speculation, and conjecture. That's perjury. That's perjury because they swear under oath that this was an affidavit. And it was not an affidavit. It was all hearsay, conjecture, and speculation. There was not a single fact in there whatsoever. And the results proved that there was not a single fact in there whatsoever. So they failed at due process of law every step of the way. They violated their rights. They violated their oath of office. Now, what gets even...
Go ahead.
Well, what gets even worse is that, I'm aware of a lot of stuff that most people have no idea whatsoever. People haven't even thought of. People haven't even considered. It's just my normal day-to-day awareness. Well, one of the very, very, very dark truths, and there are many, many, many really dark truths, unfortunately, and I don't like to focus on them, but it is really important to be aware of them, and if you're not aware of them, you can never be free of them. But one of the very dark truths is that the whole system of what people call law, but it's not actually law at all, it's all legalese, it's a big scam. So, for example, in municipalities, which is where all the police officers are, they're, in municipalities, there's something that's called municipal tort immunity. And this municipal tort immunity is what allows police officers to, violate people's rights, to violate due process of law, and never be held accountable and never have there be any consequences. How many stories have you heard? There's thousands of them where a police officer, violates somebody's rights and, they just go on with their job as though nothing ever happened. It's extremely common.
From the specific verbiage of it, it sounds like they're not necessarily required to have to stand up for what they accuse someone of. If I'm defining that correctly.
Well, yeah, not only that, but they can violate people's rights. They can violate due process of law, and there's no accountability there whatsoever. And attorneys can't even hold them accountable. And the point here that I want to make is that attorneys are all part of the scam. Even the so-called good ones, the so-called good ones, they don't know it. But the real truth is that attorneys have no license to practice law. You cannot license the practice of law. It's one of our birthrights. In fact, if you ever want to be a sovereign, you have to know the law. You can't be sovereign without knowing the law. Ignorance is no excuse. And so you must know the law. Well, people don't know the law, and attorneys don't even know the law. All attorneys know is legalese. And attorneys have no license to practice in law. All they have is a license to be a part of an association. And it's the bar. It's a bar association. That's all it is. Has nothing to do with law. It's an association. And the bar is subject to the crown. The crown.
Right,
which is the Bank of England.
The bar is technically something out of London, the city of London, if I'm correct in guessing that. It's a private association that's from London.
Yeah, so what my point is that these so-called attorneys who are practicing so-called law, they're actually just as much a part of the problem as, the police officers and the municipalities and the courts and the judges are. Because these attorneys, and again, this whole system of control, this world domination, these guys who are in charge of this, the groups that are in charge, these global elite, they are diabolical geniuses. You have to give it to them. They have figured it out so well. They've implemented so many layers of control. It's just brilliant genius. And what they've done is over many generations, they have integrated the bar, which, like I said, is nothing more than an association. It's just legalese. It's all about commerce. It's all about the maritime law. It's all about, the international trade laws. That's what it's about. It has nothing to do with common law. It has nothing to do with constitutional law. It has nothing to do with, with the real law of our land and the real law of freedom and the real law of rights. It has nothing to do with any of that. And so all these attorneys, they've sworn fealty. They've sworn an oath to the bar. They've sworn an oath to the crown. They are subject to the crown. They are, they do not have your best interest in mind, and they cannot represent your best interest. They have to follow all sorts of rules. The attorneys are bound by all sorts of rules, and that's why I mentioned this, municipal tort immunities. These municipal tort immunities keep the attorneys from actually directly prosecuting the officers, because the officers have this municipal tort immunity, and that's all part of the system. It's all part of the plan. It's all part of the diabolical genius. So there's no way, if you use an attorney, to ever get any sort of real justice. It's completely and totally impossible. And that's why the people believe that the government can do whatever it wants and there's nothing they can do about it. But, and this is what's really important here, is that if you know the true law, you, as a free man or as a free woman, can actually bring claims yourself in the common law court against these officers. And you can have real resolution, real justice. Now, it's not something to be trifled with. It's not, it's not just a little walk in a park. It's not like baking a cake. There's a lot of information you got to be aware of. You got to know exactly how the law works. You got to know what court proceedings are. You've got to know, the various jurisdictions. You got to know all these different tricks that the judges and the attorneys play. It's a very complicated and a very serious game, but it is possible and it is there. And if we, the people, would begin to actually take responsibility for our life and our freedom, this stuff would be standard. This would be standard. And if people actually took it upon themselves to educate themselves like I have, all the information is out there. All the information is out there. And it could begin to be commonplace that we, as free men and women, know the law and we know how to enforce the law. And if we knew the law and we knew how to enforce the law, all of a sudden these police officers, these judges, these mayors, these code compliance officers, they'd all be out of jobs. They'd all be out of jobs, and they would start following their oath of office real quick, because everybody's selfish. Everybody's selfish, and everyone in the government system, they're doing what they're doing because that's what their boss wants them to do, and they're just trying to keep their jobs. I literally, was taken from my family at gunpoint on this S.W.A.T raid day, and this police officer, who took me from my family at gunpoint. I asked him. I said, because he wanted me to come with him, and I was like, no, I don't want to go with you. I want to be with my family. And he said, well, I want to be with my family too. And I said, yeah, but you woke up today and you chose to leave your family just like you do every single day. And you took your gun and you held it to my face and you took me away from my family by gunpoint. It's completely and utterly different thing. Completely different. So my point is that everybody's just selfish. He doesn't care about rights. He doesn't care about honor. All he cares about is his paycheck. That's all he cares about. Well, if you take away their paycheck, you take away their job, they start caring real quick about your rights. Not because they care about your rights, not because they're honorable, but because they care about losing their job. And all you have to do is take away a few people's jobs, and they start paying attention real quick. So we can make a stand, and we can use the law to do it. We don't have to use guns. We don't have to have a revolt. We don't have to have a rebellion. We can use our pen. We can use our paper. We can use our words, and we can do it according to.
I'll tell you what, Quinn. You're probably making the biggest protest that there is, and you're voting with your dollar, and you're not putting money into the system, and you're not voluntarily putting money into their code kitty that they have, forced people into, and you're not buying into the illusion that they've got, full authority over you and your family and your property. So that's probably why. you were such a threat to them. And I've got to be honest with you. When I read the press release, and it said that they brought the SWAT team in, I was completely miffed. I could not understand how they could bring in a SWAT team over a city code violation. And then when I read the part about the marijuana warrant, I was like, they trumped that up to bring in the SWAT team for a full show of force, so you would get punched in the nose as hard as you could, and they were hoping that you would back off and not pursue this any further.
Exactly.
I'm curious, since this has happened, since the raid happened and you were drug out of your house at gunpoint, and I remember, I'd like to ask you to expand on that a little bit in the future here in a second. I'm curious, have you had any more harassment or any ongoing problems with the city of Arlington itself with code violations or maintaining anything like that?
No, we haven't heard anything from them at all. And a big part of the reason why is because, this story is like wildfire right now, man. It's, it's nationwide. It's all over the place. Like I said, I was on the Ron Paul show. The Huffington Post, covered it. We were on, NBC and, CBS and, WFAA. All sorts of radio shows like yourself, independent broadcasting, radio shows, some of them extremely large, some of them, on the smaller side. So this story has gotten a lot of attention, and everybody nationwide agrees that it's completely ridiculous. Everybody's outraged. Everybody thinks that, the government completely overstepped their bounds. They completely violated our rights. So they're really trying to lay low. Like, they really don't want any part of this right now because they already look really, really, really bad. And they know for a fact that their warrants and their affidavits were bogus. They know for a fact. They were just hoping, again, in their ignorance. I mean, they should have realized from all the lawful notifications that we sent that we know the law. In their ignorance, they were hoping that, we would just be like everybody else and, be thankful that we didn't lose more and that something worse didn't happen and just hope that they don't come back. But we know for a fact that their affidavits and their warrants were bogus. And they know that we know that, and they know that it's true. They were just counting on the fact that they would find marijuana and that they would find drug trafficking, and it wouldn't matter that their affidavits were bogus. It wouldn't matter that their warrants were bogus because they found what they were looking for, and it would justify it anyway. But unfortunately for them, and fortunately for us, their affidavits were bogus, their warrants were bogus, and they found nothing whatsoever to substantiate any of their bogus claims, and now they're just, they're screwed. So with that being said, we've been in contact with some of the biggest lawyers in the business, some of the biggest attorneys in the business, and I appreciate, because these are like I said, these are the good attorneys, the ones that are sort of fighting for the people, are trying to do good with their slave status. But they're right, but they really can't provide any real solution. They can't really do anything except for basically get them off of our backs and guarantee that they're not going to fuck with us anymore. But they, like I said, they can't bring any suits against any of the officials. They can't bring any suits against the mayor. They can't bring any suits against any of the people involved. All they can do, and they can't even really get us compensations. We had one of the big time attorneys. He mentioned Rodney King. He said, remember Rodney King? He was beaten, to death, to almost death on video. And, his compensation was almost nothing, considering the circumstances, and nothing at all happened to the police officers. Sure. So it was a huge deal, that of course everyone is outraged about. It was on video. It was obviously an atrocious violation of people's rights. He was beaten almost to death. And even in that circumstance, the justice was not justice.
I agree. I'd like to help bring this into people's worlds, help them understand this as a reality for themselves, as it was a reality for you, and what amounted to me to a complete miscarriage of justice and just a masculine show of force and a lot of dick waving and stuff. Can you take us back to August 2nd, 7 o'clock in the morning, I think it was, when you peered out across your yard and you saw what was basically a military force entering your property? Can you give us an explanation of and there's some really terrifying things that happened in that especially with the young children there and some of those things. Can you tell us about that? I know you've done this quite a few times, but it might help some of our listeners identify with your particular situation.
Well, it really is terrifying, and there's really there's no worse or more dangerous situation than you can really be in. Because the truth is that these militarized, tactical force teams that come in here, they're coming in here trained to kill, and they're coming with equipment and weapons that are designed to kill. And they're coming totally amped up. They're coming under the perspective, their superiors have told them that this is a drug trafficking cartel and that there is weapons on site and that they will be met with force. That's what they're being told. They're coming in fully trained to kill people with the perfect equipment to do that. And they're coming in with their adrenaline pumping because they're expecting to meet some sort of drug cartel with guns that could potentially kill them. So it's an extremely dangerous situation. In fact, you're 8 times more likely to be killed by a government raid than you are a terrorist. It's extremely disturbing, but it's a fact. I mean, it's real. I'm not making this shit up. Yes, it's about 7:30 in the morning, and I hear a little bit of disturbance in the front of the property. And I thought it was like a wood chip truck. We save thousands of pounds of wood chips from the dump every year by allowing wood chip companies to dump their wood chips on our land. And so I thought maybe that's what it was. So I stuck my head out the front door to sort of have a look and see what was going on, and I saw a fully battle-ready tactical team filtering through my land. They had the bulletproof shields, they had the full body armor, they had the sidearms, they had the bulletproof helmets with ski masks, they had the taser guns, they had assault rifles. Every single one of them was. Yeah, they had, and their assault rifles, they weren't like hanging at their side. Like they were creeping through my land with their fingers on the trigger, ready to shoot anything that triggers their shoot mechanism. And so, as soon as I see that, I'm an extremely conscious man. I've been training myself in very intense and serious situations for a long time. I am not easily rattled. And so when I saw this, my senses immediately pricked to their full awareness, because I know that my life and potentially my family's life and my children's life is actually on the line. That it is actually possible that we die. And, so I immediately, of course, think of my children. And, one of my children at the time was 2 weeks old. She was born here in the Garden of Eden, never once saw a doctor, never once had a checkup. There was no doctor, no midwife that was present at the birth. A very easy and healthy birth. It was under a 2-hour labor. And this child had never once left, this land, never once ever been separated from its mother. Nurses, whenever it wants to. So, I immediately, of course, think of my children and, the mother of these children. And, so I my senses are pricked up, boom, I immediately move in the direction, which is on the other side of the house and upstairs. So I run across the house, I run upstairs, and, I wake up the mother, and I say, look, there's a SWAT team here. This is a raid, and, there's nothing we can do. They're going to be here, any minute. So we just got to prepare ourselves as much as we possibly can. We've got to be as calm as we possibly can. So she's woken out of her sleep with this information, and I'm not like screaming or yelling. I'm calm, and but still that information, being woken up with that information, with your children on your breast, as a mother, is very disturbing information. So she's like, she's scared. And, she's, trying to catch her breath. She's trying to do deep breathing, trying to calm herself. And I'm just saying, look, be calm, just, at all costs, stay with your children, at all costs, stay calm. Don't under any circumstances get mad or get upset or yell or scream. Stay as calm as you possibly can in every single moment, and at all costs, try to stay with your children. And,
right. They're expecting very excited people in there, and like you said, they're probably expecting, a Colombian drug cartel with AK-47s, and
yeah, exactly. I mean,
do is short circuit.
That's what they're trained for, and that's what they're expecting to meet. They come in. That's why they come in with the gear that they have, and that's why they come all amped up, the way they come. So, they come in, and we're the last people, because we're upstairs at the end of the house. So, we're the last ones, and we hear, loud, angry voices at the bottom of the stairs, shouting up to the top, identify yourselves, how many people are there, shouting orders, and, before they can see me, I as calmly as I can, respond from the up top of the stairs, there's nothing to worry about. We have no weapons, we're not going to fight you, we're not going to resist you in any way. There's a mother up here with 2 children. Be calm. We're not going to fight you. We're not going to resist you. Just be calm. It's okay. There's no problem. And they're just yelling, come down with your hands up, come down with your hands up. And so, I very slowly walk to the top of the stairs, not even to the top of the stairs, but where they could sort of see my head and my hands above my head. And I just sort of stand there for a second, and I say, look, there's a mother and a child up here. There's no guns. There's no one else. Just me and the mother and of these 2 children. They're asleep. And, there's no problem. I'm sort of using, my Jedi influences over the situation. And there's no way that I'm going to go to the bottom of those stairs until I feel like they are fully aware that there's a mother with 2 children, and there's no problem and there's no danger, because I don't want them running up there and creating some traumatized experience for my children. So I move closer, then I stand at the top of the stairs. I stand there for a second, and I say, look, the only thing I care about is these children. These children, one of them is 2 weeks old. She's nursing. They're asleep. It's just a mother up there. There's no weapons. There's no danger. There's no problem. You're not going to meet any force. You're not going to meet any fight. It's all okay. It's all okay. It's all okay. I start slowly walking down the stairs. There's no problem. There's no problem. There's no problem. It's all okay. It's all okay. It's all okay. There's no problem. Step by step. And, I get to the bottom, and, of course they grab me and, put me in handcuffs and, escort me, from the area and, bring me to another room, which is where everybody else is sitting while they secure the area. And of course, you know, we don't feel secure in any way. And then, you know, they go upstairs and, you know, they secure that area. They bring a nook downstairs, you know, who is the mother of these two children, and she does not have her children with her. And so I immediately, you know, say, you know, where are the children? You know, why is she separated from her children? You know, this child's 2 weeks old. She's never been separated from her mother. You know, she needs to be back with her child, she needs to get back with her children. And they're like, well, we have to secure the premises. We have to secure upstairs. And once we're sure, you know, that it's secured, we'll bring her back to the children or whatever. You know, so they have her in handcuffs and they, you know, get her information, and, you know, she, you know, doesn't resist. She doesn't put up any fight, any problem whatsoever. She just gives them the information that they want. They take her away. They wind up bringing her back upstairs after about 10 minutes or so, and then they set her in a chair in handcuffs. And you know, of course, I don't know this because I'm there, because I'm in a different room. I know this from her, you know, her firsthand account to me. You know, the infant, you know, needs to nurse, and so she has to ask permission, you know, to nurse her infant. And so the armed guards that are guarding her, you know, call down on their little, you know, communication earpieces or whatever, you know, permission for, you know, mother to nurse the child or whatever. And so they grant permission, and they take her handcuffs off, and they allow her to, you know, to nurse the child. And basically they say, you know, lie there and don't move. You know, she's held at gunpoint, you know, guarded for, you know, for a couple hours. Everyone else is held in handcuffs for multiple hours. I, of course, demanded to see a warrant, you know, as soon as I was brought downstairs, you know, and put in the room with the other folk. They did not show a warrant. They said, you know, the warrant's not here. We'll show it to you when it gets here or whatever. You know, which is already a problem. You know, a warrant has to be presented on site to anybody that's in the warrant and or the landowner. So that didn't happen. I demanded the names and badge numbers of the officers that were in the vicinity. Not a single one of them would give their names or their badge numbers. You know, I asked what their official capacity was, and they didn't even know what their official capacity was. I asked them for their oath of office. They did not have it. I asked them to recite their oath of office. They did not recite it. You know, just complete dishonor the whole way around.
They're used to people begging them not to tase them. They're not used to people who have any type of education in the law and asking them to fulfill their duties.
Right, they're not. But again, all that does is highlight how big of a problem this really is. Because if the people are not educated and the people don't know the law, there is no hope for any justice. There is no hope for any enforcement of the law. Because the government isn't going to enforce it. You know, that's obvious. You know, the government isn't going to uphold it. That's obvious. That's what they're supposed to do, but that's not what's happening. And it hasn't been. That's not. You know, that hasn't been the case for a long time now, and it's only getting worse and worse and worse. So, you know, I began, because they wouldn't give us any information, I started to talk to my friends around me, and I started to tell them, you know, about due process of law, about our rights, about oaths of office, you know, about all these really important things. And so I started talking to them about that, and one of the officers looked at this other officer and sort of gave him a nod, and they grabbed me and escorted me to a different room because they didn't want me, you know, informing the other people about due process of law and their rights and about oath of office. You know, so that was another highly dishonorable move. They held everybody at gunpoint in handcuffs for multiple hours. You know, the drug narcotics team, you know, was probably there for about an hour and a half, and, you know, they realized real quick that they weren't going to find anything related to, you know, drug trafficking whatsoever. You know, that whole team, left. The SWAT team left probably about an hour and a half, into the whole ordeal. They kidnapped me under the guise of an arrest, which they also didn't show a warrant for, and it was supposedly some unpaid traffic ticket, which I actually went to court for and got dismissed the other day. And yeah, exactly. And they, after they took people out of the handcuffs, they finally presented a warrant. About 2 hours into the whole thing, they kept everybody under armed guard for 10 hours. While all sorts of officers, destroyed our crops and stole our stuff. They didn't at any point in time allow us to use any video cameras, anything of that nature at any point in time, except for at the very end when, they were all leaving. Shelley went out with a camera and got a couple snapshots of them leaving. But for basically the whole 10 hours, they held everyone at gunpoint. They kept everyone, detained. You weren't allowed to, move about the land. You had to, ask permission to do everything.
And their position in this is that that the whole occurrence only took 45 minutes. Is that what they've been telling the media?
Well, they're according to their official responses to the media and whatnot, they said that we were only in handcuffs for 20 minutes, which is just a complete and total blatant lie. They also said that they didn't use an unmanned drone, but we have 4 witnesses that know what drones are and saw the drone. They also said that the SWAT team was only there for 45 minutes, but that's also a complete and blatant lie because we were guarded by fully battle-ready SWAT teams for at least an hour and a half, and we have detailed accounts of that because one of my friends that was there at the time, he didn't live here. He was just here for a couple days, and he had set his alarm to wake up at 9, and the alarm went off while we were still being guarded by fully battle geared SWAT tactical units. So if the raid started at 7:30, at 9 o'clock, that's an hour and a half minimum of being in handcuffs and guarded by fully battle-ready tactical units. So we know for a fact that the fully battle-ready tactical units were there for at least an hour and a half. And we also know for a fact that the overall, raid was 10 hours long because they didn't leave until 5 p.m. The only reason they stopped stealing our stuff and, cutting down our crops was because it was 5 o'clock and they, their job day was done and they wanted to go home. Right. That's the only reason they stopped. So we have facts, we have proof of all of this. We have signed, sworn, and attested to affidavits, the reaccounts, step by step, time by time, moment by moment, all of these accounts. They don't have any signed, sworn, and attested to affidavits of that. They just have their lies. And, they loaded trailer loads full of our stuff that they stole. They cut down 17 blackberry bushes, which is a real big blow because, blackberry bushes aren't something that you just plant a seed and then, 2 months later you have a crop from it. It's something that you plant and, 2 years later, you get a crop from it. So that was a big blow. We lost, 14 tomatillo plants, 15 okra plants, and I can't remember whether it's 14 one and 15 the other, but we have a detailed affidavit account of that as well. They cut down our Johnson grasses, they cut down our sunflowers, both of which were key components to our sustainable ecosystem. And not only did they cut down, like I said, the okra and the tomatillos and the blackberries, but because they cut down the grasses and the And the sunflowers, we actually had a bunch of other plants that died because they were now exposed to full sun and couldn't handle the heat. So those died as a result. Also we have beehives, and those bees, live off of the sunflowers. So those sunflowers were a loss of food for our bees. So that compromised the health and longevity of our beehives. It was just
substantial damages from this raid and the basic violence that they portrayed on y'all.
Yeah, I mean, not only were there substantial damages to our land and to our personal property and effects, but our rights were violated, due process of law was violated, their oaths of office were violated. There was bogus warrants and bogus affidavits. I mean, the whole thing is it's completely and totally ridiculous. It's completely and totally ridiculous in every single way. And, we are grateful that no one died. We're grateful for that, but that doesn't justify it, and that doesn't make it okay, and that doesn't make us, feel like, they did a great job. They didn't kill anybody. The only reason...
That's not a level of service you should have to expect by being a free person on the land.
Right, exactly. The only reason that no one died is because of the way we handled it. We were extremely calm. We didn't react in any way. I mean, there was literally people that were woken up at gunpoint. In fact, my friend that had his alarm set, when he was woken up at gunpoint, he was so scared that he couldn't think straight. And they were shouting at him and yelling at him, demanding him to tell them how many people were here, what the head count was. And he's just waking up, being woken up at gunpoint, and they're shouting and yelling and demanding him to answer these questions. And all he can see, because these guys are in total black, you can't see anything. They're in total black except for their trigger finger. Their glove has that trigger finger exposed.
Right, the cutout.
And all he can see is that trigger finger on that trigger with that fully loaded assault rifle pointed at his chest. And they're yelling and screaming at him, demanding that he answers these questions. And he's woken up, like I said, at gunpoint, and all he can see is that trigger finger, and all he can think is, I might die. I could die right now. And how can he answer these questions in that kind of a situation? It's just completely absurd and completely ridiculous that something like this would happen to free people based on a bogus warrant and a bogus affidavit. And it's even more sick. It's more sick that there's no justice, that there's no attorneys that can really even do anything.
And that's really what they were planning on. It seems like is that they trumped up this.
Of course, they know exactly how it works. They know about their municipal tort immunities. They know that that attorneys can't do anything. They know that the whole system is a scam. They know that the whole system is set up to keep them protected. To keep us from being able to do anything whatsoever. They're totally aware of that, and that's why they keep abusing their powers time and time and time again. I mean, like I said, in many ways, this went much better than it could have, and we're grateful for that. But it doesn't change the fact that this is a total atrocity, that all of our rights were violated, that due process of law was violated, that their oaths of office were violated. Those are facts, and all of it is not okay. It's not okay in any way. And I hope that the people begin to wake up, because if the people don't, it's only going to get worse. And the only thing right now that's keeping any sort of level of freedom at all is our Second Amendment gun rights, and the fact that there are millions of armed and trained men and women in this country. It's the only thing right now that's keeping total tyranny, total dictatorship from existing. If you look at the Communist Manifesto, every single point on the Communist Manifesto is complete. And there's only one point on the Communist Manifesto that's not complete, and that's gun control.
See, I myself, I've got to agree with that. I tell my friends when we talk about the Second Amendment and the violations of the government and things like that, that back, I think it was 1933 when they took the gold from the American people, that they made a mistake. If they were going to try and forward this agenda that they're still trying to push now, they should have took the guns at that point, because they could take the gold now if we didn't have our guns. And I've got to agree with you. We're one of a handful of nations in the world that are still afforded our natural rights as humans to defend ourselves and maintain and bear arms. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you on that page. And further, like you said, this story is spreading like wildfire, and I think that it really says something, that the exposure that you've gotten from this, maybe some of the new media that's popping up, and I assume that most of this media that you spoke with the exception of a few of the mainstream channels,
right, which of course right, of course, the mainstream channels, they didn't cover any of the important information. They didn't share any of the important information. All they did was share the basic surface information, which is that, there was, a warrant for drug trafficking, and there was a full, SWAT raid, and they didn't find anything, like a minute and a half, little report. And, they very conveniently left out all the real important stuff that I shared with them. So radio shows like this, are really important. I don't know exactly how many listeners, tune into this specific program, but, ones like this are really, really important, because I've had the opportunity to share the real important information, the real important truths. And obviously I haven't had time to go into great detail on this kind of stuff, but, if you're paying attention and if you're actually listening, there should be a lot of questions that you're asking yourself now. And ideally, people start doing some research. Ideally, people start researching some of the things that I said, like, how, attorneys are slaves, how they're a part of the system, how they're a part of the problem, and they actually have no power. And it's set up that way. It's designed that way. You can find all of this information. I'm not making it up. These are facts. They sworn fealty to the bar, and the bar is the crown. A few other really important things that I want to mention, and of course I don't have time to go into details about, but if you actually care, you can find all this information on your own. The Federal Reserve, it's a private corporation. It's no more federal than FedEx. And the Constitution of the United States very clearly states that only Congress shall have the right to print and dictate the value of the U.S. currency. Well, the Federal Reserve is a private corporation, so that's treason. And the Federal Reserve has been in place now for 100 years, and it's one of the most devastating things that has ever happened to our country. And it's a big, big, big key part of the system of control. The IRS, you do not have to pay income tax. That's a fact. And there is plenty of law to support that fact. And if you start doing your research, you will find the information to support those facts. You do not have to pay income tax. It's a total scam. People have been taught to think that they have to, and that there's actually authority to enforce it. But the fact is that the reason why you have to, well, you don't have to, but the reason why you fill out, the tax thing every single year is because it's an application. You have to apply. It's totally voluntary. And that's why they require it every single year, is because they have to have your agreement. They have to have your consent. They have to have your application. It is totally voluntary in every single way. And the information, the facts are out there to prove that. And once you know the facts and you know the law, you can enforce the law. And when the IRS, tries to, people are terrified of the IRS. Everyone's heard that saying, death and taxes. The only guarantees in life are death and taxes. Well, sure. Guess what? I know the law, and I know the places that you can find the law that, prove for a fact that, IRS and, the income tax, it's totally voluntary. And, if you don't know the law, it's very easy to get, roped into and, tricked into, tax evasion and things like that. But if you actually know the law and you know court proceedings, it's very easy. It's very easy to be free of that whole paradigm. And it's a really key, important part of as you mentioned earlier, we're really a living example of the solution because we're not feeding the beast. We're not paying taxes. We're not buying our food from a grocery store. We're not, paying utilities. We're not driving around in our car, consuming petroleum. We're not feeding the beast. And that's a really, really key essential part of the solution. If people stopped feeding the beast, then the beast would die. It would starve. It would get weak, and it would disappear. It would have no more. It would have no more care. It would have no more power. It would have nothing. And the other key component to not feeding the beast is knowing the law. And you really have to know the law, because if you don't know the law, then like I said, if you try to not pay your taxes, then they'll get you for something called tax evasion or some other crap like that. But if you actually do know the law, then you can lawfully stop feeding the beast, and there's nothing the beast can do about it, because they have to honor law. They have to. It's part of the system, and the law, can potentially be something that is used against you, but it's only used against you if you're ignorant of the law. It can't be used against you when you're aware of the law. The law is always in your favor when you're aware of it. It's always in your favor when you're aware of it. It's only in the ignorance of how it works and what's going on that it's not in your favor. So it's really important that people start asking questions. You don't have to believe me. That's fine. But if there's any chance, if there's a 1% chance of what I just said being true, how can you, as a man, as a woman, as an individual, as an honorable person, as a responsible person, how can you not ask questions? How can you not do some research? You've got to be sure either way that what I'm saying is either true or false, and you've got to know it for yourself. So, if you don't do that, there is no hope for you. If you hear information like this and you don't follow it through, you don't ask questions, you don't start doing some research, there really is no hope. You'll never be free. You'll never be successful. You'll always be a slave. And, you'll just get older every day. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But, it's not nearly as juicy. It's not nearly as awesome as the possibility of living as a king or a queen. Imagine what it would be like to live as a king or a queen in your own kingdom. It's totally possible. That's actually the way it was designed. That's the way our country was set up, is so that we could all be kings and queens of our domain. It's a really beautiful thing, and the law does exist for that to be possible. But we have to enforce it. Ignorance is no excuse. You can't be a king and expect someone to give you that kingdom. It doesn't work like that.
Absolutely.
To be a king, you have to claim it. That's the only way.
The of the people part of the of that saying is absolutely the part that we have to start living. And before I let you go, that you've raised a lot of interesting points, and you've really given some sage advice. And there's the community that I'm a part of. We've really begun to examine a lot of this stuff lately. Before you go, I've got a few questions that from the listeners that I'd like to ask if you've got just a few more minutes.
Oh, I've got as much time, man, as you will broadcast this information. This is as important as it gets. And every minute that I have to be able to share this kind of information with anybody who is even remotely ready to listen, I am here for.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Quinn, very much. Our first question, are you going to get your stuff back? You mentioned that in another interview that I read that there was like 2,000 pounds to 4,000 pounds of things that were stolen from your land. Is there any opportunity for you to retrieve any of those items?
I don't really have any hope of ever getting them back. And to me, it's really not my main concern. I think that we should get them back. I would think that would be the honorable thing. That would be the just thing. But they already know that they made a mistake. They already know that they're wrong, and they haven't apologized. They haven't offered to bring our stuff back. Like I said, there's attorneys really can't do too much for us. They could, the attorneys could probably get our stuff back, but there's no saying what condition it'll be in.
Right, or if they'll be right
there's
back.
There's plenty of stories and plenty of accounts. Yeah, of stuff that was confiscated and it was returned, but when it was returned, it was, in a far different condition than when it was taken. It's basically destroyed and useless. So we don't have any desire to, have returned to us a bunch of stuff that was at one point usable and that is now no longer usable. I do think that we should get our stuff back, and yes, I will at some point in time, make a motion, and a claim to get our stuff back. But, really at this point in time, it's really very little concern to me. It's just stuff. What's of real concern to me is the things that I've been talking about all night long, which is due process of law, which is oath of office, which is rights and or the violation of rights. The militarized police state that is currently becoming the norm across our country. The common use of tactical teams and SWAT teams across the country. Like I said, the IRS and income tax and the Federal Reserve. Due process of law. Sovereignty. All of those things are of my real concern, of real importance, and that's what I really want to share with people. And obviously this whole thing was a total travesty, and a violation of our rights and due process of law and oath of office, and a mistake in every single way. But it's also a potential blessing, because now I've had the opportunity to speak with people like you and share with hopefully share with the audience that you have that is keen to come about new information and keen to actually play a part in the solution versus just complain about the problems. And so to me, that's priceless. And if I have to give up, if I have to give up my stuff, if I have to be a martyr in this way, for this type of information to get out there and for real change and real awakening and real empowerment of the people to take place, I am more than happy to give up this stuff.
That's a noble pursuit, definitely. I've got one more question. I appreciate you answering that. And of course, stuff always takes a second position to the ideals that you're trying to reach out with. This is another point that someone brings up that I think is pretty relevant. He's a local Texan and he's familiar with the Arlington area, and I think it stands to mention. He asks if there's pressure to develop that area as apartments and such are springing up in Arlington pretty regularly. And I'll add to that, do you think that there might be any covert agenda to possibly push you guys off that land to make that happen?
There's no way I can rule that out, and that's one of the very common questions that I get, and that's what a lot of people think. When they first hear about the story, there's no way I can say that's not what's happening. What I can say is that I don't have any facts or any proof that is happening. I don't know if some sort of private investigator would be able to find information about that. I'm really not into politics. I'm not into what the city is doing and what their interests are. So I'm definitely not the person to have any sort of keen awareness of if that was taking place. Again, I could be wrong, but what I think it's about is what I mentioned earlier, which is that we're self-reliant. We're not feeding the system. We're not complying with the system, and we're teaching other people how to do that. To me, that's what it appears to be. The information that I'm sharing is very powerful. It's very effective. It's the what I'm sharing is the real solution. If just a few million people were to realize what I'm aware of and to actually live the solution, this whole country would change.
Agreed. It would probably, if we could snap 1 million people out of it overnight, what they say about 10% of people, I think it's probably a lot less than that. If you could snap 1 million people out of it overnight, then then change would occur so quickly it would make everybody's head spin, because the basic foundation of communication and change is already established and in place. It's being used for commercial activities at this point, but if that wasn't any longer, something that was important to people, but communicating and making a difference was, then that infrastructure is there. We've got one more question.
Yeah.
Have you investigated or looked into I'm not familiar with this term, maybe you are, the opportunity for a land patent?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I'm glad that was brought up, because I didn't bring that up, and that's a really important thing. Also, I just wanted to mention real quick that if there is anybody that has any information or is able to get in any information on, like you said, any sort of development or whatsoever, that's actually really powerful information that attorneys can use. All the attorneys have asked about that, because if they had some sort of proof that there was, that the city was in some way trying to get rid of us because of some invested interest, that would be something that they could totally prosecute for. So they're real interested in that. So if anyone has any information about that, that's more tapped into the city politics, any private investigator that would like to, try to come to the bottom of information like that, I'd be more than happy to hear it. But as far as land patents go, that's really powerful information, and it's a really key part to the solution. It's a really, really, really key part to the solution. We do not have a land patent. I am aware of land patents. I'm aware of how powerful they are, and like I said, it is a key part to the solution. The reason why we don't have a land patent is because here in Texas, and I've only become aware of the land patent information, really legitimately within the last 6 months. I've done a lot of research on it. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy to research stuff like this, because there's no real good information out there. There's no website that's just, really clean and clear. This is what a land patent is, this is what it does, and this is how you do it. There just is no site that has that. You get little bits of information here, little bits of information there, a story here, some hearsay there. It's very little information. And here in Texas, there's no BLM. There's no Bureau of Land Management that, did a survey and has that land patent information. So from what research I've done, we actually have to go to the Secretary of State, which is down in Austin, and we have to get the land patent information from them. And so what that means is that we've got to go all the way down to Austin to get that. And on top of that, I've gone to, like clerks of court and, different government officials in the courthouse before trying to get certain information, like oaths of office for, certain government officials, or, bond numbers or charter numbers, and they do not make it easy in any way to get that information. In fact, they make it as difficult as they possibly can. And sometimes it takes days or weeks to get this kind of information. And so, we'd have to go all the way down to Austin, and we'd have to spend, I don't know how much time it would be to try to get that information. And there's still no even guarantee that we'd get that information. Plus, you still have to, you have to claim the forever benefits on that land patent, which is a whole process in and of itself. There's a big, there's certain rules that got to be followed. There's, different seals and, signatures that have to be gotten. It's a pretty intricate and complicated little process in and of itself. There hasn't been anyone that, that I found that, is actually willing to either help or show me the exact process. So again, it's something that I have to do based on information that I found from the internet that I don't have any real proof that actually works. So, again, it's trial and error, and, it costs a lot of time and a lot of money to do it. So land patents are really powerful, and I do think that they're a key part of the solution. And it would be really great if, maybe there is a site and I'm just not aware of it. So again, if someone's aware of some, how-to guide or some site that has that information, very laid out, very clear, that works in Texas, not just, in one of the original 13, states, I would be more than happy to hear it. But yes, it is a key part of the solution, because when you have a land patent, what you're doing is you're claiming the forever rights of that land, which means that it's sovereign land, which means that all the statutes and codes and jurisdiction of the city completely and totally disappear. So if you can do that, it's a solution to a lot of problems. But with all that taken into account, I still believe that with due process of law, you can still claim your rights, and still enforce those rights. I don't think that you should have to have a land patent in order to be secure in your property, to have the right to your pursuit of happiness and your spiritual path. Those are still birthrights that are protected pursuant to the supreme law of the land. And regardless of a land patent, I think that with the proper use of the law, those rights should be able to be enforced and protected regardless. So I totally support the land patent. I do want to do it. I think that it's worth doing. I don't think that it's absolutely necessary. It's sort of like, there's all this information out there. I don't know how aware you are of this, but like at the UCC1 filings and, like the Social Security card and birth certificate, if you have a Social Security card and birth certificate, you're a slave, and, there's nothing you can do about it because you've got these private contracts and blah, 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 blah. I personally disagree with that. I believe that it's possible to actually have a Social Security card and have a birth certificate and still operate in your free capacity, because our birthrights and our God rights, they're unalienable rights, and you can claim those at any point in time. And as long as you claim those on the record and you're operating when I can't hear you very well, but you sound kind of broken up.
Okay, how's this? Is that any better? I'm trying to. Looks like I've got some internet issues here for some reason. Real quick, I appreciate you joining us, if you can hear me, and I thank you for taking the time and talking with us. Hopefully we can have you back sometime. Can you hear me? I sound like the guy from that commercial. Can you hear me now?
I really can't hear you, but I did hear you say you'd like to have me back, and like I said, that's my purpose. That's my purpose here on this earth, is to awaken, is to inspire, is to light that spark within the people. And any information that I can share with people that are, keen to listen, to hear, to question, to research, I'm not claiming to be any expert. I'm not claiming to have all the answers, but I do share facts. When I say stuff, it's all facts. It's not based on hypothesis. It's not based on hearsay. It's not based on conjecture. It's not based even on opinion. It's facts. So it's really powerful. And if people are willing to just do some research and just start questioning, they will find that what I'm saying is facts. And what that does is it changes our whole perspective on the world, because we realize the whole world we've been living in is a lie. And it's an illusion that's been created for us, by a system of control. And that illusion is key to that system of control continuing to operate. So anytime I have the space to, discuss these important matters, to explore these important matters with any amount of people that are really interested in it, I'm all for doing that. So anytime you want to facilitate that space and, create a venue for that, I'm more than happy to be there.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And we've been speaking with Quinn Eaker, and you can visit his website at intothegardenofeden.com.
Yeah, and I'd like to just say real quick, please do tune into our website, not only tonight, but, also on a semi-regular basis, because, this whole thing has only just begun. And, I'm really committed to, providing information and updates, to the people, because it's such an important thing that's going on here. And, I really want to be able to share as much of this importance as I possibly can. So, tune in there for, we'll have updates. Also, if you can find us on Facebook, it's the best way to really spread the word. Social media is just so powerful. So we are on Facebook, and you can find us on Facebook by putting in the Garden of Eden Kennedale, which is Kennedale. Garden of Eden will pop up. Like our page. We've got links to all the radio interviews that we've been on. All the TV, coverage that we had. We've got links to all of that. We're also, posting updates as far as, what's happening with this whole thing that's going on. Anyone that's in the area, we, like today, for example, we had a day in the garden where people came out and, sort of helped us rebuild a little bit and, sort of get back on our feet. So we've got certain things like that going on. We're going to have different gatherings and events here on the land where, I talk much more in detail about some of the really important stuff that we've, talked about tonight. So it's an opportunity to get more detailed information and also, potentially meet other people that, are on the path. And, with the Facebook, you can share, you can share these updates and these stories with other people. And like I said, this awareness is the real key. So the more people that are aware of this, the more potential there is for a little spark, a little question, a little something to awaken someone's mind that says, hey, this really isn't right, or this, the implications here are, really extreme or whatnot. So, Facebook is a really powerful tool for spreading the word. And that's actually the reason why this whole nationwide attention started, is because of Facebook. We actually sent press releases to the major media networks, and we didn't get any responses. And we put it out on Facebook, and we basically told everybody, this is what happened, and this needs to be covered. And we had people, calling and sending, emails and Facebook, things, on Twitter things to the media people, and the media people came out to cover it because so many people were telling them, you've got to cover this. And that's the reason why they came out. And then, because we got a few hits, it just, it's a snowball effect, or a wildfire thing, where it just caught on, and now it's like going viral all over the place. So,
as it should.
Yeah, exactly. So my point is that even if you can't donate to us, even if you can't, come out here and help us rebuild, even if you can't, do certain things like that, you can click the like button. You can click the share button. You can, participate in certain ways that, that do participate in the solution. And, we all can participate in whatever way we can participate in right now. I know not everybody's ready to just stop paying their taxes. I know not everybody's ready to just start growing their own food. But you can start sharing the truth about someone who is. And, by seeing an example of someone who is, it gives hope, that it is real, that it actually is possible, and it is doable. So.
Absolutely. You are setting the stage for quite possibly some serious change in the future, and we appreciate that, and I appreciate you for joining us, Quinn.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I look forward to hearing this. And being able to share this interview. Is a really fantastic one, one that a lot of people can benefit from, and I appreciate you creating the space and the opportunity for this to happen. And I wish you all the blessings. I wish everyone that's listening all the blessings. Just remember, we are the power. We are the power. We are the power. We are the power.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And I'll be in touch. And again, thanks very much, Quinn. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
All right. Have a great night.
Thank you, sir. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.